All Three Beards Media podcasts originate from the Gravitate Co-working Studio, sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How are you guys tonight? This is Fall Starts. I'm your host, Chris Shipley, co-host Bill Blank. Billy, what's up, man?
Not too much, dude. Just having I'm doing some branding. Something I've never done before was worry about my brand. It still seems like a weird word to even say out loud.
Yeah, I saw you posted something on your Facebook that you're doing some different headshots now, and you're gonna try to.
Yeah, I told myself I remember being out on the road when I was in my early 20s, and I'd open for comics that had been around for a really long time, and they would show up and they were obviously 20 years older than their headshot.
Yeah.
Or whatever promo they were using, headshot. That traditional headshot isn't necessarily as important anymore as it used to be, but just photo shoots, whatever. Anyway, sure. So many people my headshots, like the headshot that I send out for promo is like 15 years old, so I need to have something more up to date.
Yeah, I chose not to use that one in the opening. I was going to steal it, but I chose not to use it.
Oh, really?
Just didn't feel like it was a true representation of who you
were. Gotcha. Yeah, exactly. So these, and I'm redoing my website. Like, my website was always just kind of a template, I just never spent a lot of money on any of that stuff because I don't know. I've just always felt like if I just was as funny as I could possibly be, which I'm not, I could be better. I don't work as hard as I should necessarily. But anyway, I just thought that would be enough.
Yeah.
And none of this stuff would matter. Well, I've got these projects coming up, which I'm not going to discuss publicly yet, but I want everything to be in place when that stuff gets done so that, I'm ready to hit the ground running, I guess, if it turns into...
That'll be exciting when it happens, then.
We shall see. So we shall see. But yeah, things are looking better in the comedy world, starting to work more, It's just getting some more like better paying gigs here and there starting to come along. It's just been kind of a slow process when you're not a famous guy and I didn't, hit it hard. I was going through a bunch of shit. So, it's starting to come along better now. So I'm excited.
Well, 2024 is going to be a pretty good year for both of us. I start a new job next week. So that is going to, I think, propel my career in a lot better area. It's back in an industry that I'm familiar with. So I'm super excited to get started with that. So
are you what is it? What's the industry?
It's property management.
Change?
So I worked for a company called BH Management here in town.
Right, I remember that. They're like the thing you got fired from, right?
No, I quit that job. No, I quit that job just because they had made some changes, and I had been there 8 years. I knew the job in and out, and I wanted to try something different. And then that just didn't work out the last couple jobs, and this opportunity showed up that I can. It'll be a one-man department, but I'll be able to make the department and make it grow. It'll be mine, and I'll be able to eventually, build something. And I'm kind of excited about it. Start from the ground up. So So
good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. So all right, let's bring.
You haven't worked the last 2 weeks or what?
No, I've been off since Friday. Although Friday I spent the entire day at the hospital with my mom, so that's another story. Fun. So that, I didn't have any fun with that. So
right on.
Let's introduce our guests. Go ahead and do your introductions, Bill, and we'll bring him in.
Yeah, this is actually, it's interesting. We were kind of talking about careers and everything because that's kind of what why I wanted to bring our next guest on. You know, when I was going through the COVID stuff and you know, the divorce, I was suffering kind of an identity crisis, you know, and
yep.
You know, I may never, you know, there was a time where I didn't know if I'd ever even do stand up again. I was kind of mad at it, you know, and so,
sure.
You know, and so our guest is someone who has, you know, and lost the job, got it back, and now has voluntarily done something different. And, you know, is someone we identified all the time in the radio here in Des Moines. So everybody, please welcome Andrew Downs, our good
What's
pal.
Up, guys?
How is it going?
Yeah,
Andrew?
It's going well, man. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to do this again.
Yeah,
it's great to have you back.
How often are you getting a microphone in front of you these days?
Not that often. Not as often as I used to. Not every day, that's for sure.
Oh, right.
I still do podcasts for HawkeyeNation.com. And then I do some kind of freelance podcast production work. But outside of that, it's not very often. So it's kind of nice to put the old pants back on.
What is the day job?
Are you wearing pants? That's the question. Are you wearing pants?
I am. Yes, I have to wear pants every day now, unlike when I was in the radio. I just started the start of the year with a company in Johnston called AKC Marketing, and I'm doing a few things for them, but mostly like merchandise sales. And so, you know, helping organizations and businesses and stand-up comedians with you know, merchandise of a variety of things. So hit me up if you want to work with me. You know, I'm just kind of getting my feet wet in the, you know, it's like anything. The industry is a lot deeper than you would expect that from the outside. And, you know, I'm a month into a career that hopefully lasts a long time. And so I'm still asking dumb questions. That's kind of the stage I'm at right now.
It's not just t-shirts, it's coffee mugs too. It gets deep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it does.
Stress balls.
Stress balls, yeah. Especially like if you're a trucking company, you got little stress semis that you can squeeze. You run the gamut of the stress balls. I mean, there's you can get chocolate laptops made.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trust me, I'm into this. I know exactly what
I bet. Doing. Yeah, absolutely.
When we were at VH, we would order. We would order promotional gifts and promotional stuff like that all the time for properties and things like that and giveaways. And so, yeah, I totally know you can get anything. I can't tell you how many koozies. I can't tell you how many koozies we ordered.
It's wild. Like I said, you know, at first you think like, oh, it's apparel. And then when you like anything, I start to see the world now differently. I'm looking at, you know, the hats everybody's wearing and the clothes and like the logoed gear and, oh, okay, like this is something like, what do I actually use of this kind of, you know, stuff I've gotten over the years? What are the shirts that I still wear, even though it's got some other company's name on the front?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been fun. You know, after 15 years doing the same thing, it's really strange in a lot of ways, but it's been good so far to kind of try something completely different.
That's kind of, you know, how long did you agonize over that change? Like, because especially when, you know, you guys went through the whole thing where everybody got canned basically. And I know that basically only lasted a day or two before you knew that you were going to get your job back. But like, you know, you got the job back. It was yay. Everything's great. So especially after you go through that, and then to walk away later, like, did you agonize because of how, you know, hard you guys worked to get that back? And
did
that play a role?
For sure. I mean, there are two. I absolutely agonized over the decision. I mean, for years, right? It's something I've been thinking about. But yeah, it was, you know, and like, you know, we can talk more about the story and whatever, and there's no hard feelings or like, you know, I've gotten over what happened in 2020 when we got laid off. But that was the first time that I realized, oh, you're probably not going to work for KXNO for the rest of your career. Now, whether that's your choice or their choice, up until that point, I had never really considered that it would come to an end at some point. And then it did, right? And it was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. And so, yeah, that kind of put the idea in my head of, okay, this isn't going to last forever. So when it gets to a point that it's time to walk away, it's better for you to walk away than to, you know, be walked out that door again. And so, yeah, that definitely like planted the seed. A big part of that was how like quickly I came to terms with the end of my career at that point. You know, I didn't like come up wanting to do this. This wasn't a dream I had as a little kid. And so the first time I got to do something cool, I was like, oh, I've already won. And so I didn't have some like achievements I was looking for that if I didn't get, I would like feel like I, you know, left something behind with my radio career. Yeah, exactly. Failed or just, you know, left something on the table. It's like, nah, I got in, I had a lot of fun. I did my dream job for a while. I met a bunch of cool people and had a bunch of cool experiences. And then I decided it was time to do something different. And so, to be able to be content with the end of my radio career, or at least up until now, you know, never say never. That was a huge thing. And again, I learned that like you said, I was out of a job for like 30 hours, but in those 30 hours, I had completely
a lot had to go through your head.
Well, and I was excited for what might come next. I, you know, saw this whole different life in front of me that I'd never even considered before. And so, yeah, that made it a lot easier 4 years later to say, it's time to go live that life.
How did you go ahead, Chris?
No, I was just going to say, I think you also realize in that time that as sad as it is that sometimes you're not as important to this company or whatever as you thought you were. Right. So at that point, when it's time for you to decide to make a change, you have to kind of realize it that same way. Like, listen, it's not personal. I got to do what's best for me. And
because they'll drop you like a bag of fucking potatoes.
They did.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
But what also made that hard is like the people around me didn't drop me, right? And the audience didn't drop us. Yeah. And like, so it's absolutely the hardest part of making the decision I made to leave KXNO was about the people. I mean, if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't have stayed as long as I did. The only thing that kept me there for the last couple of years, when I could kind of see the writing on the wall, was the people. And it was, I mean, it's the only thing I miss. I don't miss spouting opinions or like I'm not watching the Iowa State game tonight. It doesn't matter. Literally nobody's going to ask me about it tomorrow. That's not how it was.
You didn't care. You didn't care about Iowa State anyways.
But I felt like I had to at least be playing this stuff,
right? You had to know guys' names. You had, you had to be able to.
But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. But yeah, no, the people were that was everything. I mean, it was, and again, that's the thing I miss. It's not being on the radio. It's not any of that stuff. It's hanging out with those people every day.
Well, shit. Now I forgot what I was going to say because I let Chris go. But are you watching the Iowa State game, Chris?
I'm not, because it's on the Longhorn Network. Ward knows.
Exactly.
Right.
Are you serious?
Ward also said me with a hat and 80 no hat was plus 1900. Yeah. I'm
trying the no hat thing on.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to like walk into rooms.
I'm a businessman, right?
Yeah.
I have to uphold my image.
Oh man, there's a great I can't remember the song. It's like an old punk group. It's like Working Man, I think is the name of it. And he gets up, goes to work on time, and oh man, I gotta figure that out. I'm sorry. I'm on a tangent now. So
is it the Working Man Blues by Merle Haggard?
No, definitely not. It definitely would not be a country song.
Okay.
I think my opinion on country music, Chris.
A couple years ago, I was listening to some punk record that I used to like when I was in like middle school, and it made me so depressed that I'd like turned out exactly. It's like, I don't want to be, I'm not gonna have a job like that, and I'm not gonna, like, I don't want your life. And then I'm looking around, and I'm like, I live in Urbandale with my wife and 2 kids. I'm 9 to 5. Like, I'm so the opposite of what I thought I was gonna be when I was 12.
I got to take the minivan to work.
You're right.
There's a story about like a guy. It's a old band story. I think I might have saw it in a movie or something, but it's like a band was walking. It was like Christmas time and blizzard, and they were like their bus had broke down or something, and they're like walking with instruments and shit, and you can see in this door in this picture window of this house this idyllic family having Christmas dinner and stuff, and they're all kind of looking. They're freezing and everything, and one guy is just like, Jesus, how the fuck do they do that? Like, could you imagine? It was great. It's all built up like they're gonna be all jealous.
Yes.
So changing worlds like that, I was the identity crisis a part of that, or when you kind of got fired that first time or whatever, or laid off, was that when you had the identity crisis?
And then exactly. That's exactly what it was. Yep. And that's what, again, allowed me to kind of decide to make this move now. I mean, the amount of, like, as you said, my identity, right? Before I started working in radio, I just had kind of normal jobs. I was just like, afloat. I was floating around. And then I got that job. And then, it's like everything kind of built from there. And all my friends were people from there, and people knew who I was. And I met my wife through working in radio, and like my parents loved listening to me. And my dad was like so proud that, all his buddies listened to the show. And like my son, who was 4.5 at the time, thought I had the coolest job in the world. Like he would come in, and you know how KXNO Studio was and is. And he literally thought all I did was, shoot little hoops and kick a ball around and putt the ball and just talk sports with my buddies. And, so yeah, it's like everything I was built around that job. It was like, that is who I am. And then I lost the job, and I was worried. But again, it's wild how quickly it happened. That like evening, right? Like I got fired at 9:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. By 9:30 at night, I was fully secure that my friends still had my back, and my parents were still proud of me, and my kids still thought I was cool. And it was like, oh, that's just a job. Like that's not, and it's, it was a cool job, and it, got me a lot of things I never thought I would have, but it was just a job. And it was like, oh, okay. And then honestly, like I started treating it differently. Like you said, Chris, earlier with the loyalty thing. And again, nothing personal to anybody, right, at iHeart, but like, yeah, I had been underpaid and overworked for a long time because I loved my job. I thought it was so cool. And as soon as like it's the coolest thing ever thing goes away a little bit, it's like, oh, okay, this math isn't working out the same way it was. And plus, you have 2 kids and everything's more expensive. And corporate media world gets tougher and tougher. And, 1,500 people were laid off that day. And a lot of people have been laid off since then. And most people didn't get their jobs back. And that does numbers on people in every market. Right. And it just, things got to the point where it was like, man, I love parts of this. I would do Murph and Andy's show for free for the rest of my life if I could afford to do that. Like, even if nobody listened, I would hang out with those dudes for 2 hours every day for the rest of my life.
Right.
But there was a lot more to that job that, again, became, and then, I get the anxiety, and it's like, well, man, if this isn't even fun anymore, what the hell are you doing? The whole thing was that you didn't wake up anxious, that you didn't stay up at night, that you you were happy to go into work. And again,
now you feel like you're on thin ice all the time.
Yeah. And again, a lot of parts of my job I absolutely loved, and I was truly happy to be there. And like most days were better than bad, but again, that you start doing that math and it's like, man, I could get fired tomorrow. I know it can happen. It's happened once. And how much of myself am I really willing to give with,
well, the powers
for
that be,
for what I'm getting back. And so
sure. Yeah.
The powers that be take advantage in entertainment. The powers that be take advantage of that. They take advantage of the fact that you're happy to be there and they know it. Like, it's
a huge part of how they, it's a huge part of the sales pitch.
Absolutely.
Hey, be on the radio. It's part of my sales pitch, hiring producers and things.
Exactly. And it's like, it's a different level of convincing a server that their tips are going to be good. It's just it's how they keep themselves making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to look around at record profits for all these corporations and then see how they're not giving raises and how prices are still going up. And like I saw a meat sale at Hy-Vee and it was like this advertising, like this huge meat sale, and it's all just garbage ass fucking meat. It's all like, it was like this 10 for $10 brat. The brats are 10 for $10 every fucking week.
Yeah,
like
that's not a sale.
Does anybody ever look at that? And like, I think they had ground like 85-15 ground beef for like $5 per chub. Like, that's not a fucking sale. You might as well grocery shop at Quick Star, for fuck's sake. Like, for all of those things. It's like, well, how come your fucking ribeye isn't on sale for 99 cents a pound? You fucking. It's just, but shit like that's just flat out corporate greed right there. There's no reason at this point. The inflation is not. It's purely speculative. It's not necessary.
Right.
It's happening because it can. And that's what people do to you. They get away with what they can.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes on
give you
both
more
levels.
to do. And exactly.
Well, and that's why management is a hard place to be in too. Like, you were in charge of people, and people that you're in charge of are going to get away with what they can get away with.
Yes.
They're going to fall short. And then it's your ass that's on the line.
Yeah.
When that happens, and you got to answer for it.
And so not only that, but
that shit.
You also have to deal with those corporate cuts and whatever else, and have to justify it to the people that are busting their ass every day.
Right. And so, you're having like two conversations, and they're completely different.
Because secretly you would like to go, no, I'm with you. This sucks. You know what I mean? This is total bullshit. And
you filter out whatever you can, but some of that stuff can't be filtered.
Well,
and I think you have to
especially when the people above you want you to deliver messages that don't make sense, and they don't make sense. And they give you this fucking sales pitch you're supposed to give that is an insult to everyone's intelligence. And now you're supposed to stand in front of them. It's like, okay, this is what's going on. I'll see you at High Life after work, and I'll tell you what I really think about it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like this person who lives in a city that you've never been to, who's been here once, maybe has this opinion, and now we all have to adhere to that because of their job title. And it's stuff like that. And, doing things that are good for the, national, but not good for the market, or like don't make sense within a local market. And, that is why we got let go in 2020. It's a misunderstanding of what connects people to things like radio, especially talk radio. It's that local thing. My analogy is like Iowa and Iowa State could be undefeated, number 1 versus number 2. Like somehow they play at the end of the season. They're both 11-0, and they're all 5 of the top Heisman guys are Hawkeyes and Cyclones. And even in that scenario, Dan Patrick is never going to talk enough Iowa and Iowa State to satisfy people in Des Moines. He's never going to be talking about the third string quarterback or you know what I mean? It's just, you're never going. And that's what people want. People want deep dives. They want people who know what they're talking about. How annoying is it when you hear a podcast and the person talking about your team knows less about your team than you do. It's like,
yes,
why am I even listening to this? Like,
insanely annoying. Yeah, 100%.
And so it's why Three Beards Media is doing well. It's why other it's this hyper local thing, and conglomerate corporate media has trouble seeing that for the most part, and that's a shame because it makes things really hard at the local level, and it kills off stations that shouldn't be killed off.
ESPN is a classic example. They don't even halfway send people to a game anymore, and I can't tell you how many times. And granted, I was the bigger school. I understand that it's in the Big Ten, but I can't tell you how many times I've watched an Iowa State game and they've referenced them as Iowa, and it's just laziness, is what it is. It's laziness, and even Cheryl Swoops the other day with her commentary about Caitlin Clark. I mean, she had absolutely no idea what she was talking about in regards to her career. So, and nobody checks it. Nobody checks that stuff. So,
well, there's a part of me like Cheryl Swoops is sitting there on a couch on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, and she's talking about, she's having like a casual conversation, like as if microphones aren't there, as if it's not recording.
right.
Like she didn't go in there prepared to talk about Caitlin Clark at all. It wasn't the point of being there. You know what I mean? Like Caitlin Clark got brought up in it's basically a casual conversation, right? So it gets brought up, and now she is just going off the cuff of what she thinks because of a narrative that's been set by people like Kim Mulkey and different shit like that. And she of course didn't dig into that before going on there. So she just said what she thought, and she was wrong, but everybody attacks her so hard that she just doubles down and just blocks people on Twitter.
See, but that's the problem, though. It's the doubling down. It's like, you're right. You're 100% right. And like, as somebody who's had a microphone in front of their face for like what seemed like casual conversations. I mean, Bill, you and I have done radio together where it really just seems like we're kind of hanging out, and it's like, oh, hope I didn't say anything there. But when you get called on it, you have to be like, oh yeah, my bad.
Yeah, and that's
right. I mean,
that's
like,
the strange thing. Like, you know, because she doesn't, it's not like she has plausible deniability or anything.
No,
you know, like there's things,
it's wild.
There's things I've done that I'm ashamed of. That if I got to a point in my life where I was like famous enough that people gave a shit, and there wasn't anybody to really substantiate the claim, then I'd be like, I might be like, yeah, never happened. Fuck off. You know? But if there was video evidence of it,
that's the thing.
Right.
So, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. You know, even though now maybe there's something to respect about it. Like, hear me out on this. Maybe there's something to respect about it.
Yeah.
Because if she apologized, maybe she knows, like, intellectually that she wouldn't mean the apology. Like, she actually is being a hater. She actually doesn't like Caitlin Clark.
She's like, you know what? I don't care that I was wrong. The point was made.
I don't fucking
the point
like
is,
her.
Facts don't matter.
I think everybody loves
mad.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, for one reason or another.
I'm mad she's going to break this record. I'm going to justify that in my head however I can. And
I was better than her. I think I was better than her. She thinks she was a better basketball player than Caitlin Clark, and she's upset that she didn't get as famous. I mean, I think that could be part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know
100%.
because, man, egos are crazy.
I think you're
like
right.
That.
Like, I think she's a little bit jealous of the attention she has in college. And looks back and goes,
the ability to make the
imagine
money.
if I would have played now and what I would have. And it's
because
so
she won
unfair.
Natties. She won Natties.
And she's right.
Could
too.
you imagine
what
it would be like if I played now?
She was that famous even then. Like, if she was able to be on, if Nike was able to sign her or Gatorade was able to sign her, they absolutely would have. So yeah, it's like she's not wrong when it comes to that, but it does suck to, like, because there are some women in sports and I would say most, obviously, and like most former basketball greats and like current broadcasters and things, you see the way they react to Caitlin Clark and the way they like bring her in as one of them. You see when Sue Bird sees her, it's like a recognition thing, right? It's not like she's hey, it's hey, you're one of us. And so that's like one of the coolest things I think has been of watching this whole Caitlin Clark extravaganza is like the way these broadcasters and former players embrace her and approach her, and like even the NBA players, right? Like they see her as one of there's a likeness there. And so it really sucks when like Dawn Staley and Cheryl Swoops and I mean, screw Kim Mulkey, I don't care about her, but like the former, like the great players who like legitimately paved the way for people like Caitlin Clark, for them to like hate on her for any reason, just really, it sucks. It's a bad thing.
I think that there are maybe some like racial undertones to it where it's like they feel like if you look, and maybe racial is the wrong word, maybe more of like a hip hop versus country almost type thing, like where maybe they feel like Caitlin Clark, because I've watched her plenty at this point, and I love how if somebody's in her kitchen, she's throwing a forearm at them, like she's all that stuff that guys do, and they get everybody says like, you know, that's aggressive. Everybody loves it, right? You know, and now maybe they feel like because she's a white girl, she gets away with that behavior, whereas someone like Angel Reese, if she throws a forearm at somebody on the court, they're coming at her a lot harder than Caitlin Clark because she's this all-American white girl, and they want to present her in this image, and they don't think it's fair that other girls don't get that same treatment. And they may feel that race is the reason for that.
I think you might be spot on, because last year when Caitlin Clark did the whole thing in front of her face, it was cool. Everybody thought it was cool. Angel Reese did it, and she was a thug and taunting.
Right. Well, but it was different. Angel Reese was literally following her around the court doing this right in her face.
Yeah.
Whereas Caitlin Clark was looking at her strength coach as she came out for a timeout and just went like that. Like no, Angel literally followed her, did it like 7 times. Like I was watching, like, okay. It was like she had to make sure she saw her. She wanted to make sure she looked at her. You know, that was a little more excessive and totally kicking somebody while they were down. Like the game.
I do think though, like, you know, it would be naive to act like there was not some racial element to all of this, as there is with most things or a lot of things like this. I mean, I agree completely, and I mean how valid that is, it's not really my place to say. But you know, clearly it's a thing.
I feel like I just feel like I look at it from like an economic point of view. Like if I were in high school right now and Caitlin Clark was in high school and she was at Dowling and I'm at North and my team won the state championship, but Caitlin Clark's getting all the attention. My team is mostly minorities. Caitlin Clark's team is all white. My team is all poor kids. Caitlin Clark's team is all rich kids. I feel like I would be saying the same exact shit. That's
maybe,
and that's why I think that's there. I don't know. Like I'm trying not to just throw Cheryl Swoops under the bus. Like, I'm trying to have some understanding of why she's saying, like, she's not the only one. There's been several other people talk, and they don't. It's just like everything else. They don't talk about these things they don't say the words they really want to say. They know better than that. But there's undertones. And I see the undertones on both ends. I mean, just like you said, Chris, when Angel Reese acted like Angel Reese in any given situation. It was disgusting. I'm glad that my kids have somebody else better to look up to, you know, and you could see the undertones in those statements. It was like you could almost hear them saying the N-word in the comment.
Right.
Even though they didn't type it.
Right.
Like you could hear it in their brain rattling around as they were typing.
And to Caitlin's credit, the whole time she was like, I didn't have any problem with it. I mean, why shouldn't we be able to talk trash and do the same stuff that men do? She had zero issue with it.
Exactly. And that
she handles herself so well in these situations.
She does.
She's been in so many of these things, and she seems to always say the right thing. It's wild.
Yep.
Well, I think she's probably been well schooled on it. I think that, you know, but it's weird, you know, any of that stuff. There tends to be less people involved than people think. You know, like I think that people probably think that Caitlin Clark's got a whole team around her, and she may have there may be a publicist involved somewhere. I don't know, but she's always just got on the mic and said the right thing most of the time. I mean, regardless,
off the cuff.
Yeah,
so I can't imagine that she's coached to exactly what she has to say.
Well, when I was at the Funny Bone with Willie during Christmas week, her shooting coach was in the audience, and Willie's a Dowling guy, so you know everybody kind of knows. And as the audience is leaving, and we're out there kind of in the receiving line or whatever, shaking hands and kissing babies, and the guy Willie's like, "Hey, this is Caitlin Clark, shooting coach." This guy, you know, and I just look at him like, "Oh, you're Jesus Christ, you're riding that fucking way. You got the easiest job in the fucking world. Talk about stealing money. Jesus Christ, Caitlin
like Tiger,
Clark, shooting coach, really? Yeah,
like
Tiger's
swing coach.
Get the fuck out of here! How dare you tell Tiger Woods how to swing a golf club? Like that,
hey, Tiger,
kills me, dude.
Your backswing is a little off. Let me show you how to do it.
Yeah. Like,
hold on, let me move my 7 majors out of the way.
Here's the thing: we got to call that something different because they're not. Yeah, they should be like number one observer or something like that,
right?
Because what they really do is just watch video,
right?
And they go,
"Oh yeah, do that again."
You missed this shot because your big toe pointed left instead of right. Every time your big toe points right, you make it. So work on pointing that big toe right every shot. Because
100%.
I mean, that's not coach. That's not teaching. To me, coaching is teaching.
That's like analytics. You just found the flaw in the data is all you did.
100%.
All right, let's take a break. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, Andrew, I kind of want to touch on some of the stuff we talked about before about how you identify sometimes too much with your job. So let's get a break here from Revelton and from Gravitate Co-working, and then we'll be right back with Andrew Downs.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip, and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. The great thing about working from home is working from home. The worst thing is working from home, especially for face-to-face collaborations with customers and coworkers. And let's face it, coffee shop meetings are neither private nor professional. So skip the trip to Starbs and investigate Gravitate Co-working Space. For more than 10 years, Gravitate has provided large and small office and conference spaces perfect for hosting meetings, workshops, or other events, as well as private phone booths for confidential conversations. Plus, all spaces include secure fiber internet, free coffee, and access to a kitchenette, All you need is your laptop. Gravitate does the rest. And renting space at Gravitate is surprisingly affordable. An hour of office space costs about the same as venti caramel macchiatos and breakfast sandwiches for two. Daily and monthly rates are also available with no long-term commitment. Learn more at gravitatecoworking.com. That's gravitatecoworking.com.
All right, and we're back. Thank you so much to Revelton and to Gravitate Co-working and their sponsorship and support of us.
Is that, wait a minute, is Gravitate the company you were working for?
No, it is not.
Oh,
no.
I was gonna say that would have been fucking weird.
Yeah, that would have been awkward. So
like when the presidential candidates drop out of the race after the caucus, but they paid for the ads through the month.
Right. Or they were talking shit about him, and then 2 days later they're standing.
They endorse him, but the ads are still running.
Telling them how much they love him.
Right. Yeah.
Tim Scott.
I'm gonna go ahead and endorse Donald Trump. I'm dropping out. Donald Trump's gonna kill all of us.
Right.
Endorsed
Exactly.
By Ron DeSantis or whatever.
So Andrew, we were talking before, bantering a little bit about job and basically identifying as your job. And I mentioned a little bit, and I've mentioned on this podcast before that when I got let go in January of last year, that really put me into a tailspin as far as just my overall confidence, and to the point where there were times this year that I was pretty low, and I would sit at my desk and just cry because I just felt like I didn't know where I belonged, and I didn't know what I was doing. And it really shattered my confidence. And it's a sad thing when I look around and see the family that I have and the friends that I have, but I'm so focused on what my job defined me as.
Yeah, man, that's really tough, and like it's totally, I think, relatable to most people, right? I mean, you spend a lot of time doing that, right? Like, I mean, that's where you spend most of your time. That's because I've had the same feelings and the same thoughts. And again, like we talked about, I was lucky that my initial unemployment, back in 2020 lasted 30 hours because I was able to kind of come to some realizations and figure some things out, but then I didn't have to wake up,
you didn't have to
10 days later, like still exactly. Yeah. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to like figure it out from there. It kind of got figured out for me. And so, and then, this past time, those couple of months, I did have days where you wake up and you're like, man, what kind of worth do I have? Like, what am I doing? Especially, and I found this in my new job too, which is interesting. A thing that I kind of didn't recognize in radio that I now kind of miss is this daily sense of accomplishment where you start the day and you don't have a radio show put together at all. You may have some ideas and, something happened last night, so you kind of know where you're going to go. But then throughout, a handful of hours, you, and in this case, Murph and Andy and I would put a show together. And then from 1 to 3, we would do this show. And when that show got over, like no matter what emails I forgot to respond to that day, or no matter what work I left for tomorrow, I did a thing. I started a thing. I finished it. I was proud of it. And tomorrow I'll come back and I'll do the same thing. And so then when that just goes away, and all of a sudden you have days where you're like, what did I actually accomplish today? Like what got done? What did I start? What did I finish? Was it nothing? If that's nothing, man, like what is that? And again, so I had wired my brain to this kind of daily hit of dopamine of doing that show. And I'm finding it's kind of a struggle to find those little wins, find little things in my day now where it's like, okay, maybe this thing isn't done and maybe it's not perfect and, whatever, but I did this thing. I have this kind of, daily goal, this task. And so, again, like just all of this stuff that we can say that we're fully fulfilled by our friends and our family. And hopefully we mostly are. But like you said, you can look around and be like, man, I have everything I could have ever wanted that's like real, and still feel like I'm worthless on some level because whatever the case may be with, if you're unemployed or whatever that is. And so that's really tough, man. And it's completely, I think, relatable to anybody who's been out of a job for any length of time, or even probably been in a job that they hate, that's a dead end job that they don't feel like is going anywhere, and that they're not proud of. And so it is wild how much of ourselves, and then some of it is just reality, right? Like you need to make money, and the less money you make, the harder things are, and more money, more problems. But that's when you get to a certain level, and none of us are at that level yet.
Yeah. Right.
So there's some tangible stuff to it too, where it's like, okay, you do kind of have to stare it in the face every day to some extent. And that's stuff. So yeah, I think it's cool that you guys talk about this stuff on this podcast too, because it's stuff that I think a lot of people deal with and a lot of people think about, and most people don't ever voice.
Yeah, thank you. But I think that's where like imposter syndrome comes into play. Like I have always, said personally that I have the worst imposter syndrome. Like when a lot of times when I'm on stage, like I get done with a show and I'm getting paid and I feel like I got over, like I feel like I cheated. I feel like especially if I didn't take any chances that night. Like if I just put it on autopilot and I just crushed like a full house and I don't even try anything like new, or like I just greatest hits, just fucking boom, boom, boom. Like I feel like I cheated. I feel like I didn't do anything at all. But like also just kind of daily life. Like my therapist has always told me that I have to have bigger. Like it's, a big problem in my marriage was, I think, the fact that my wife and kids weren't enough. That, as far as, I mean, of course I loved everybody, and of course I did, but, I didn't necessarily I still made a lot of selfish decisions because of what I did. I tried to have my feet in both worlds as much as I could, and I wanted to have that normal home life, but in order to provide enough, I would have to be gone more. And so I'm trying to balance that, the difference between money and absence, and it all just becomes a big stress balloon. And now I'm doing stand up more on my own terms, which now I don't feel that pressure to work and get invited back to the club. I just do what I want now. I do the gigs that I want. I take the chances. I mean, I opened up one of my sets this past weekend. I just said, do you ever wonder if you're the reason somebody killed themselves? See? I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. How'd the crowd react?
Not like you guys. But
sorry.
But see, that's what I'm saying though. But there were people that reacted like you guys. And those are my, I did that for those guys.
Right.
Like, because the thing is, those are the people, like, if you want to develop a fan base and you want people to like follow you, like, those are your fans. Like, the set went great. I had a great set. And I had to win them over after that. That wasn't the ideal. I should have never started my set with that. I did that on purpose. I knew I shouldn't. I did it on purpose, just to give myself something to fucking recover from.
Because Bill has always said, "I'm just going to do what's fun from now on."
Exactly.
And I'm not making fun of that. Like, I love that attitude of you. Like, if it's fun, I'm going to do it. So this seems fun. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. Like, that's where I'm at in life, Andrew. And this is the other end of my identity crisis. This is where I came to, because, my wife left me 2 weeks into the lockdown. I couldn't work. Stand-up was done. Nothing. And for the foreseeable future. I had no fan base. Like, it wasn't like I could do shows on fucking Zoom and make any money. That wasn't going to happen. So I'm driving Grubhub, working, delivering pizzas for Fongs. My ex-wife's telling me guy my age shouldn't be delivering pizzas, you know, all this fucking shit, you know. And so I had to get a day job, and I because the next thing was, okay, this divorce, I got to keep this house, because if I don't, at the end of this divorce, I'm gonna have nothing, and I'm gonna have to go live in a shitty apartment somewhere and not be able to park my car in a garage and all that stuff that I care about now that I'm old. So, you know, that's what I made sure of. And I did. I succeeded in all those things that I wanted to do during that time. And during that time, I kept doing stand-up here and there, but I actually was forcing myself sometimes, because I knew it wasn't going to last forever. Like, I knew that the feelings weren't going to last forever, and I didn't want to have nowhere to go once I was feeling good about it again. But during that time, at the other end of that, I just decided, like, you know what? My son's is 21 years old. I'm done paying child support. My responsibilities to anyone but myself are done. So I'm 45 years old. The rest of my life, if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit who it bothers. Like, I don't care if it's selfish. Like, I don't give a shit if it's fucking Christmas morning at my parents' house. If it doesn't seem fun, fuck it, I'm not going. I'm just not doing it anymore. Because here's the thing, if it's not going to be fun, it's their fault.
You're going to have fun either way.
Right.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be around them then. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I'm just not, I just don't fucking care anymore. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it. I just don't see the point. I mean, I'm obviously going to do things for money, but like, outside of that, you know,
it is wild though to hear you say that, like just doing a good set isn't enough. Like, you would think from the outside, from somebody who's never done stand-up but has watched it my entire life and thought about it and now listens to podcasts about it, like, you would think that, oh, going up and nailing, like, having a set full of greatest hits that could just kill on autopilot seems to be like, hey, isn't that right? Isn't that the goal? But it's no, you're like beyond that, where it's, okay, I need to start in a hole, and can I dig myself out? I have half an hour to win these people over who I just pissed off. Like, that's the fun part for you. That's the game. And if it ends up that you can't win them back, that's more fun, at least, than just, you know, crushing on stuff that you didn't have to try very hard.
Yeah, everybody wants to party with Bill, Drew. Everybody wants to party.
At some point,
you should too. It's fun.
You should. It's fun.
The thing is, like, all of those greatest hits at some point were a risk. They just aren't anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's the dopamine from taking the risk. But not necessarily, like, trying anything new in front of an audience for the first time is always a risk, no matter what. So that part of it's fine. It's when you think of something and like, so I guess what I'm saying is it's not like the greatest hits didn't come about without risk.
Right.
But it is a goal for somebody starting out, that to be able to have that autopilot to go to or whatever. And that's a tool in my tool belt. But, you know, it's kind of like if you're a construction worker, like you're a contractor, and somebody hires you to do the most basic job, and you do the job and it's great, but you could have made it look so much cooler, but they didn't want you to, you know?
Right. Well, and I think there's something about wanting to have a challenge and some fulfillment. That was the reason why I took the job that I took now. I sat in that interview and I told him, I said, I want to go to a job and feel like, for me, I didn't say it to him, but for me, if I'm leaving my home and leaving my family and whatever else, then I need to make it worth it. It's not necessarily about the money. It's about whether or not I go into work every day and feel like I've accomplished something, to your point, Andrew, or I've challenged myself Could I have stayed at this job that I was at and just made the money that I was making and it'd be super easy every day? Yeah. But at that point, it's kind of like you, Bill. I'm just on this. I'm going to pull out the greatest hits. And what fun is that? That's not any fun.
Well, and your peers don't respect that.
Right.
And that's the other part of this. And, you know, I know it's not the best thing to say when it comes to mental health and this and that, to worry about what other people think and blah, 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 blah. But everybody wants to be respected in their business by their peers.
Right.
And to say you don't is just a lie. And other comics know, like, some of the best stories you'll hear is like somebody coming off stage and like you wanted to impress. Like, I remember I was opening for Greg Giraldo. I had a week opening for Greg Giraldo, and I was so pumped about it. Like, oh my God, I wanted Greg Giraldo to like me so badly. And I had great sets. I was crushing the whole week. But at the end of the week, I get off stage and I see him making fun of one of my bits in the green room. Like, as I'm walking into the green room. And then he sees me and turns, oh, hey, acted like, you know.
Right.
And that was just like soul crushing.
Right.
But it was like, oh, shit, I got to be better. To earn the respect of a guy like Greg Giraldo, crushing isn't good enough. Like, I got to be better than that. And
yeah,
what
and
does
like
better than that mean?
Right. And like what you were saying, Chris, like it got to the point with my job in radio where for the most part I could kind of go in, put like if I woke up not feeling great on a given day, I could like go in, kind of put my head down, you know, like kind of avoid people, get my job done, go home, and like just kind of go into autopilot. And it got to the point where I was like, I was doing that too often.
Exactly.
And, And that was, you know, one of the things I would say in interviews and things in the, you know, the couple months where I was looking for a job was because I legitimately left with no idea what I was.
That's the other thing that's crazy. We got to address that too. That
people don't believe it, but it's true. But so one of the things I would say is I'm just like, when I started in radio, I poured everything into it, right? Like I was there all the time. Like I wanted to learn as much as I could and do as much as I could. And that's why I got good at it. And that's why they put me with Murph and Andy, and that's why like all of the things that happened. I want to find the next thing to like pour my passion into. I want to get excited about something. I want to like, and you know, again, like in this first, you know, 5 weeks of doing my job, it's really cool to have this whole like new industry, this whole world of stuff and, you know, people and everything where it's like, I have no idea what's going on here, but like, I want more. I want to learn more about it. I want to figure it out. I want to be good at it. So what's that mean? Like, I'm not already good at it. I was already good at the old thing.
Right.
And so, yeah, to like have that just, I mean, to challenge yourself, right? Like you're talking about, Bill, you're able to do that on a nightly basis, which is like such a cool thing about being a stand-up, I'm sure. But yeah, it's like, you want to find something to like really pour yourself into and get passionate about.
Well, there's something to be said for just developing more skills, like just more skills.
Absolutely.
Like
I had this thought of where I did radio for 15 years and like I think I got pretty good at it. I think I had cool experiences. Like I feel like I had a full career, and if I never go back to that, if the podcast goes away and I never do anything like that again, I feel like, man, I like didn't master it, but like I got as close as I'm, you know, happy with. And I'm 40, so it's like I could do that again and have another 15-year career in a completely different industry. And I'm 55, and like theoretically I could do that again. Like, you know, health, you know,
I don't recommend that.
God willing,
mid-50s. I don't recommend mid-50s starting over. It's
right, but theoretically, you get what I'm saying. Where it's like,
yes,
by the time I'm gonna live once, and so by the time I'm done, by the time I'm, you know, hopefully 80 and like done working, and like I can look back and say, hey, I didn't just do. And I mean, good for people who are able to do one thing for 70 years. Like,
but look at all
that's just not what it was for me.
Right.
Well, look at all the skills that you learn that don't bring in a monetary gain, like cooking. You know, you like I'm pretty good in the kitchen. Chicks dig a guy that can fucking cook, you know?
Right.
Like that's not a monetary gain, but it helps with the relationships. Like, and then, just simple things, I worked at a warehouse for a while. I could go sit on a forklift and drive it right now without any issues whatsoever and be halfway decent at it. And there's something to be said to have all that shit in your tool. But what if someday I end up making so much fucking money that I have a warehouse full of shit and I need forklifts?
Yeah. Right.
And I can jump on that motherfucker and drive it, and I don't got to call an employee of mine to come and get something that I was about to knock over or whatever. I mean, just you name it. So why not learn more skills that also bring you monetary gain?
Right.
Yes.
And then, I mean, I'm that's another thing about where I'm at in my life is I'm like multiple streams of income guy now. Like, I'm about to start a catering business with a friend. I'm doing the day job thing at least, I don't know, for at least another year probably. I got a major stand-up project coming up. I'm doing all this rebranding shit right now. Like, I've got a lot on my plate, but it's all gonna hopefully bring different streams of income, and then all of a sudden I have the freedom to make my own schedule.
Yeah,
I don't have to be, because my biggest thing is I hate the only thing that, like, this day job is not bad. I like it. It's fine. And I make good money. But I'm obligated to be there every day at 7:00.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I don't want to deal with. I want to go to bed when I want, wake up when I want, and do everything at my own pace.
Makes sense. Drew kind of relates with that because he can retire now, 21 years of military service, just now trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. He's 38, can put 21 more in somewhere else. 100%.
Yeah, and see, that's such a great spot to be, though. Like, you can throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, you've got a retirement income basically already. I mean, I got a buddy that basically worked like Blackwater shit, like overseas security stuff. During the Afghanistan war, he was in Iraq, he was in Afghanistan. At no point, he was in the Navy before, but at no point was he there with the military. He was working like independent security agency shit and put away a shit ton of money. And when you're doing that stuff, you don't spend any money. That's the thing. It all just comes back into your bank account. And he retired at, like, I don't think he's worked since he was 35. And he just travels the world. He's like in Nepal right now, fucking diving. Just it's insane. So there you go, Drew. Get a camper.
Get an RV. Let's
don't get too pissed off about anything. We don't want any domestic terrorism.
That's right. Let's pivot back to what you wanted to ask Andrew. So you make the decision at some point, you're like, okay, I got to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Why not look for a job first and then have somewhere to go as opposed to what you did? Because number one, I can't imagine the conversation with Judy went very well when you first said, hey, I'm going to quit this stable job and I don't have anything else laying.
Well, number one, he didn't have to do that because it wasn't stable. We already discovered that it's not stable.
Right, that's
so true. You had that fucking trump card at least.
That's true.
I gotta think, and you don't have to tell us this on the air or whatever. Something had to have happened either that day, the day before. Something broke the camel's back to where you're like, fuck it, I'm out.
Not really, no. Like there wasn't like an inciting moment. There, again, it's
you gave like notice, right? You gave
I did,
notice.
2 months almost, 2 months, and I offered to stay another month because there was some other shakeups going on in management, and I just wanted to help the transition as much as I could. I love KXNO and I love all those people, and I wanted to succeed and I wanted it to be in a good spot. I certainly didn't want to like leave them in a lurch or anything. And so I did realize though, like it's kind of like having kids where it's like if you wait for the perfect time, it'll never come. There was never going to be a good time. During football season isn't a good time, but then it's, hey, March Madness is right around the corner. And then, it's like, hey, I mean, there's just always, it's a wheel, right? So there's always something. So, yeah, there were a few things. So I won't say I never applied for another job while I was working at iHeart, right? Like, but I just wasn't like out there about it, right? I didn't really tell anybody. I would tell my wife, and I'll say that the conversation with Judy was the easiest conversation I had because she saw it every day on me, and she saw the difference between me as things got harder. And you know what I mean? Like she saw the anxiety, she dealt with it more than anybody. And so when I told her, hey, I think this is what I need to do, she said, I agree completely and I have your back and we'll figure it out and, do what you need to do. The conversation nice.
What a trooper.
It's amazing. The conversation I had with everybody else was
God, what happens when you marry the right woman? That's fucking insane.
Exactly. And so
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so so yeah, it was something I'd been thinking about for a while. There were jobs I would I put myself on like lists where it would like send me, but it was all like national podcasting jobs. And there were some where like I'd legit put a resume together and like like I thought like, man, if I could somehow get through the 1,000 resumes they have for this job, if they would take a look at me, I would kill this job. Like there was a job with The Athletic doing podcasting stuff where I was like, I would crush this. But those things are so hard. It's like you never even does your stuff even get looked at, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd been kind of, for a year or so, I'd been kind of just throwing things like that. Every couple of months, I'd see one that was interesting, and I'd throw a resume out there and never hear anything back. And the kind of hope was, right, that, okay, I'll land some big job with Spotify, and it'll make sense why I want to leave, and nobody will ask any questions, and I'll say, oh, he's just going to the next thing, and I won't have to have these conversations. I won't have to have this conversation with myself, right? And like face this, and because I didn't want to leave. I mean, even the last day, I didn't want to stop doing that job. But again, there was a point where it became like, man, is this almost selfish for me to do a job that takes this much of my time and energy and anxiety and everything, it returns this little, and it's just because I kind of like it. Like I like the guys. It's fun for me. At some point I have bigger responsibilities than that. And so, anyway, it was like towards the end of the summer, it like really kind of crystallized for me. And I was like, okay, not only is this something that needs to happen, it's something that needs to happen soon. Cause again, for like a year or so, I was like, well, if something, I'm going to hit one of these jobs at some point and I'll just move on and that'll be that. But then it was like, okay, I can't wait for that to happen. It's time to go. And I didn't know I was going to do it the day I did it. I have I was in my boss's office all the time, and we had like a Monday morning one-on-one first thing in the morning. And over that last weekend, it had really really solidified for me. And I didn't go into his office expecting to resign, and he started to talk about like the future and next summer and like really looking forward. And I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to be there next summer, and it just felt so inauthentic to have that conversation that I just said, I was like, hey man, I got to stop you. I'm going to leave. And then that's kind of when it was like, hey, I don't have a timeline for this. I don't have anything else lined up. I don't, I want to finish this the right way. I want to do it, with my head held high. I want to make sure everybody's in a good spot when it happens. I want to make sure everybody knows that it's my decision and that, I'm not going to go on the air and MF for everybody. So you don't have to pull me off the air. I'm not going to steal a computer so you don't have to walk me to the door. And thankfully this time they had enough trust in me to believe me. Right. And to utilize my expertise and knowledge and try to set up whoever came in next as well as possible. Because again, I listen to KXNO every day. I did before I worked there. I will after I work there, right? Like I want those shows to do well. And I love those people. And so anyway, there was a day, and I don't remember if this was before. I think it must have been just before or maybe just after I had let, and two people knew at this point. it was during Murph and Andy, and I was, it was some segment where I wasn't really involved, and I was on Indeed.com, like scrolling jobs. And I like stopped, and like it was one of those moments where you like take a step back, and I was like, I'm not paying attention to like the thing I should be paying attention to, the thing I care about, because I'm doing this. And it just felt like, it just felt wrong, right? It was like, I don't like this at all. And so it was like, you know what? I'm certainly not going to do it while I'm doing my other job. And then I kind of had the realization of, if I just find the next job, it's going to feel like I'm just grabbing onto a boat because I'm jumping off of this one, right? Like I'm just grabbing a life raft, and I'm not going to really know what options are out there for me unless I can be just completely public about being hireable, right? Like one of the things that happened when we got laid off was, in those 30 hours I didn't have a job. Yeah, people were offering me jobs, and it was like, hey, you ever want to sell cars, or you ever want to do this, or you ever want to do this? And again, it was so short that I didn't really have time to process any of that, but it was exciting. It was like, hey, there's a whole other world out there, and who knows what skills I have that I haven't even touched yet or developed, and who knows what, things that will really like light me up and, make me happy and be fun to me.
Logically too, it comes down to like, if you spend as much time on almost anything else as you do at radio, you'll make double the money.
Right. 100%. I'll tell you this. I had several kind of job, interviews and conversations and like things that went further down the line than just an initial, like, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know.
Yeah.
I had 4 or 5, kind of opportunities that I was feeling out, or, whatever. And none of them was less money. That was for sure. It was like, I was getting a raise no matter what happened.
Right.
But and it was like, who knows what could be out there? Who knows who would call me once I was done with radio, or and like I utilized that platform to like put myself out there. And hey, if you have a job, if you're looking, absolutely. And so I use them to that extent as well. And so, but no, I literally like I left work that Friday and woke up Monday and had just started applying for jobs. Right, started meeting with a bunch of people, wanted to have conversations, a bunch of like. I just started, and that became my job, was just to try to find a job. And again, that's when I had some of those dark days and some of those tough times. And like, it's so hard when you're in that space where you're like trying to imagine your life in these various ways. Like, okay, if I get this job, it's going to be like this, but if I get this job, it's going to be like this. And which one is better? And which one would I rather do? And which one would I be better at? And at some point you start to get to like, man, I kind of just need a job. Like I need something to do. I need some money. Like maybe
all
I
of those
wait.
scenarios, in all of those scenarios you're playing in your head, is your house in like various states of disarray. Like,
absolutely.
Like this job, you picture yourself coming home and Judy's dressed like June Cleaver and she comes outside. And puts her heel up and gives you a kiss.
Exactly.
Like, well, this job would be more fun, but then you come home and she's like Peg Bundy, you fucking cigarette.
Exactly.
I feel like though a little bit when you quit a job like that and you don't have one, to Judy's credit, she was supportive and whatever. And my wife said the same thing when I wasn't happy. She's like, listen, if it means you take a job that's $15,000 less, but you're not coming home and you're not sad all the time or whatever, I'll take it, but I can't remember what movie it was, but this guy told a story about how like Columbus sailed over and then he burned the ships to motivate them to figure out how to get back home and to make them more motivated to go back home. And it's kind of the same thing. Okay, well, now I've got to find something instead of just playing around here for the last 6 or 7 months, diddling around and not making a decision and whatever else.
Yeah,
not to be that guy, but it was Cortez. I studied Latin American history at Iowa, so I should at least know that.
I knew it was somebody.
Yeah,
Columbus,
Andrew actually,
Cortez, same guy.
Andrew actually enjoyed Hamilton. Andrew listens to the Hamilton soundtrack on purpose.
That's an absolutely terrible movie. Don't even get me started on that. I sat down
I
and
love
watched that,
Hamilton.
and I had to text my daughter. I was like, "Do they sing through this whole fucking thing?"
Dude, that was another
Yeah.
part. That was another
She's like,
problem.
"Yeah." I was like, "This is absolutely terrible. I'm not watching this."
There's another problem in my marriage was I fell asleep during intermission, or like I kind of slept through the whole second half of it. It was so fucking bad.
Drew wants to
Like,
know
I
if you
just-
ever go
if
ahead.
it's not,
Bill. I'm sorry.
if musicals aren't funny, they're terrible to me. Like
Mm.
it's got to be funny. Like
And most
Book
of
of
them aren't
Mormon.
funny.
I-
Yeah,
Book
right.
of Mormon is
Book of
insanely
Mormon,
fucking hilarious. I love
and
it.
anything Mel Brooks did, but other than
Yes.
that,
Yeah. If it's not
Yeah.
funny, it's really bad to me.
Drew wants to know if you ever considered his recommendations on the East Coast.
yeah. So like, I mean, that is a thing that we considered, and you know, Judy and I have had this conversation several times in our relationship. We did it before we had kids. We did it before we got, before we got married or really even engaged. It was like, okay, is this where we want to be, or do we want to like go out and do we want to move to LA? Do we want to like try something? Do we And we decided to stay. And then after we got married, right before we had Charlie, it was like, okay, is this where we want to be? Is this where we want to lay down roots? We're going to probably buy a house. Like, are we ready to commit to this? Or do we have wild oats we want to sow? Do we want to try living in Chicago or, whatever that is? I have two brothers who live in Colorado. Judy has family in New Orleans and along the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. She has family in Phoenix. There are places we could go there, and still have family and still like have help. And I've always wanted to live in like California, and there, so we considered things, and I had, again, those kind of job alerts where I'd get the emails, and I did have one in Arlington, Virginia, because my wife works in politics, and we could find work in DC, right? She could. And if I got a good job, she could certainly do that. And so we had some places like that, right? Where like Colorado, if there was a legitimate opportunity to move to Colorado, we probably would have. But again, so ultimately we started to kind of lean towards staying here. And then I got the job offer, and it was like, okay, yeah, let's kind of redouble down here. And, because my kids are third grade and preschool. So it's like, we can move them now without much issue. They're young enough. My son would, he'd hate leaving his friends, but he'd get over it. I moved between third grade and fourth grade. I stayed within Urbandale, but I changed elementary schools, which, I mean, might as well have moved to a different place.
That's enough trauma, damn it.
Well, and then we moved to Wisconsin after my freshman year of high school. So like I'm glad that happened to me ultimately, because it taught me a lot and it broadened my horizons. And some of my favorite people are people I met there. And like, it's cool now. I live back in Urbandale, and I'm like reconnecting with a lot of people I grew up with through youth sports, and our kids go to school together, and like that's really, really cool. So I'm glad I ultimately had that experience, but it's hard to move to a different state when you're 15 years old and like just getting to the point where you start to think what's cool, and but again, there's an excitement to that too. Just like everything, I got to be the new kid. I got to reinvent myself completely. None of those people had any baggage with me at all. But anyway, so I don't really want to move our kids like at that level. So it was one of those things where we, again, kind of sat down and pro'd and conned, and we both have enough family here, and we kind of have roots in this community at this point. We feel ownership in this community and the schools and the sports teams and stuff like that. And so we decided to just kind of double down here. And that's not to say we'll be here forever, and that's not to say we won't, but we certainly considered other things. I mean, we felt like we owed it to ourselves to like really take this as a transitional period, and like, okay, if I'm going to completely change my career, we could completely change everything, and we could feasibly do it. And we ultimately decided to stay, but
sounds like you're a team, and that's the main thing. Like,
absolutely. I mean, as you said, like, I mean, I married the best person for me. We have our issues like everybody does, but we always have each other's backs. And like we kind of know when there's, when it's time to like fight and quibble and all that.
When it's time to get over it.
Exactly. And shut up and just be there. And we've both been able to do that for each other. And I mean, Jesus, I wouldn't be anywhere where I am without her. And like, my favorite thing is people who only know me from like radio, like and then they meet Judy and it's like, oh, like she's the one, like she's the smart one in the relationship. She's the one who's like going places. She's the one who's like, like she's far more impressive than I am. It's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Okay.
Speaking of which, so her being in politics obviously is the plan to progress for her. Like, if you probably will have to move if she plans on doing more, or if it's going to stay local, I mean, and how does that go ahead?
I don't think so. It's, and I don't want to speak for her for sure, or again, never say never, but she was on the school board. Mm-hmm. She got elected in 2017 and then again in 2019. And so, she went from where it was the least politicized office you could possibly hold. And, several hundred voters, right?
Right.
I mean, like the first time she got elected, election day wasn't even on the same day as the rest of the elections. And so the whole thing was just making people aware that there was an election happening. And it went from that to like
8 to 10.
Yeah. And then it went from that to like the most political office you could hold, and like the most vitriolic meetings, and like legitimately getting death threats to our house. And it's not, it's not death threats, and it's not people who hate you from afar or on Twitter. It's your neighbors, it's your kids, friends, parents, right? It's like hyper local.
Which was this? What was this office?
This was when she was on school board.
School board.
Oh, yeah. Because the school stuff during COVID became so toxic.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
No matter what they
nothing to a whole bunch. Okay.
Yeah, it went. I mean, it went
to a different office. Go ahead.
No, it was always an extremely important role. It still is, like, obviously, right? And super undervalued.
Yes.
I mean, it's volunteer. The amount of hours they have to put in, it's asking a lot. But when you feel like you're doing something important, you're able to kind of make that sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. And when it felt like that, and I mean, it felt like that through most of the pandemic, but then it just got to a silly point where no matter what they did, you got hate from one side or the other, and it was from both sides. I mean, they would go one way and they'd be hated from this side, and go the other way and they'd be hated from that side. And these are just regular people trying to do what's best in a time that, nobody knew what the hell was going on.
Exactly. Nobody
knew with people's kids. And like, I mean, we know how hot button of a topic education is, and schools and all of that. And so it really like soured things on a lot of levels. It made it so, it just really kind of slapped you in the face of like, so
what is she doing in politics now?
So right now she's transitioning out of politics.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, see, I wonder because,
but I also think that's one of those, that's like an industry that you stay in for a short amount of time, right? Like that, it burns you out.
Well, like I've again talking about the fun thing, like a big part of my mental health journey I guess there's a little, I feel maybe some slight guilt because I've like invoked my white privilege in the last year, because like I ain't voted for shit. I probably won't even vote in the presidential election. Like I've cared about it for so long, and it's caused me so many arguments and stress, and just so now I'm just gonna make fun of everything. I probably won't even fucking vote, and I don't care anymore because it's not fun. So I don't even want to deal with it. And I realize that I probably have a luxury by being able to say that or do that. But it's just politics being what it is. I hate the two-party system. I always have. It's very cut and dry to me. Like, it's so obvious that neither one of them wants to come together to do anything. It's just a constant reality show that's an episode of Survivor about blocking the other team, whatever you can do to block the other team constantly. And it's disgusting. Like, and like I just said, my new thing right now is I say that because if you watch the commercials and stuff, basically each side tries to convince you that we're all going to die if you vote for the other side.
Right.
Somehow, some way, we're all going to die if that happens. And it's like, well, here's the joke I've been doing is Democrats Democrats think that Republicans are just a bunch of racist, homophobic warmongers, and Republicans think Democrats are just a bunch of gay black women. And that's
some of us are.
That's pretty much what it is. Some of us are. Like, honestly, though, it's it stresses me out too much. Like, it's not good for my mental health to pay attention anymore.
But you're exactly right. Like, that's and it's not just white privilege, right? It's straight male privilege. It's like, it's and all three of us, it's like our rights aren't the ones that are being legislated against.
Exactly.
Right now.
And I fucking hate that I'm like not. It's like I'm taking time off. It's like, I'll care next year, or
right?
Maybe, but
yeah, exactly.
I'm
completely
exhausted.
Understand the exhaustion. That's exactly the word. It's in a bad place. All of it is, and it's.
And I know there's people out there going, "Well, it must be nice to be able to just get exhausted and be done with it." You know?
Yes,
I know, but fuck,
be better, Bill.
I can't deal with. I don't want all the shit in my life anymore. Like,
just call me before the election. I'll tell you who to vote for.
That's right.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So I just go in.
I wonder who that'll be.
D. I just check the D.
Yeah, I wonder who that'll be. Right. Full Democratic ticket. Click.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy to predict. But
but
it's honestly,
funny that
I do think that people that are 100% one way or the other are batshit crazy. I think that everything resides in the middle somewhere, and the problem is we can't get there. We can never get middle ground because neither side will. It's just a bunch of cock blocking.
Neither side wants you to get there, Bill. If they don't have anything to argue about, politics aside or party aside, there's a reason why the Republicans don't want to sign a border bill right now that they've been screaming and hollering for the last 6 months, because then they don't have anything to scream and holler about for the next year. They don't want to solve the problem. That's it. They don't want to solve the problem.
They all seem to be able to vote
in the middle.
Yeah, they all seem to be able to vote the same on a raise across the board.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Funny how they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
All the R's and the D's vote for the raises. Right. They do that together.
They're not working for us. That's for sure.
That's pretty partisan for sure. All right, we gotta wrap it up. We gotta wrap it up. Andrew's got a real job. He's got to go to work in the morning.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I got to get up in the morning.
I, on the other hand, don't. I'm going to Ames for a surplus show so I can go buy a MacBook. Anyways, Andrew, thanks a lot for coming on. Tell everybody where they can get a hold of you and where they can do some business with you.
Yeah, for sure. You can email me, Andrew at akcmarketing.com. You can just find me on social media, hit me up however you can. But I'm learning the world of merch. And so if you want to learn with me or, help me figure it out, it's been fun so far. So it's been really, really cool. And I appreciate you guys having me on, man. This is always fun.
Get me under $5 a shirt. You got my business.
All right. That's the challenge. I like it.
That's right.
I have something to do tomorrow now.
Yeah, there you go. And you'll have a sense of accomplishment if you find a way to get me under.
There you go. Absolutely.
There you go. That's right. Yeah. As Drew says, voice of an angel, give this man a mic. There's a mic here at Three Beards Media, as small and tiny as we are, for any time for you, Andrew. Sincerely.
I appreciate that. I really do, guys.
And Chris is willing to step on anybody to grow this thing. So don't
you goddamn right. You want to talk about challenge? I will.
Yeah.
I will cut somebody.
He's like Godzilla walking through Tokyo. He doesn't give a shit.
I don't give a shit. That's right. That's right. Listen, my old man always said, everybody's got their price. It's not my fault. Mine's only $7.
All right, guys. Much love.
Thank you. Check out Hawk's Eye View, Drew and Andrew tomorrow night. They're going to review Drew's coverage of the Iowa Maryland women's game, break down the OC hire of Tim Lester. I'm sure that'll be a cloud of dust, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I can't wait to see that rocket ship happening.
No,
we're
going to be physical. We're going to be physical. And we're going to be aggressive in everything that we do. I don't think you fucking heard that right, Chris.
I wasn't listening. So,
are you starting to? Are we going to stop living rent free in your head finally?
Yes. I'm going to be like you. I'm going to be like you and not give two shit.
Enough to realize that you don't need to fucking give a shit about the other team.
That's right. And I would also like to point out that Iowa State beat Texas for the last time that they're going to play him. So
did they? Good.
Horns
for them.
down. Horns down, motherfuckers. All right, we're out of here.
All right.
Everybody, thanks, guys. Have a good night.